Hey everyone, today we're going to be doing a video talking to you about a product that we've talked about before. However, this is a new version of it. This is the Z-Bolt Blazer. Now, if you guys haven't seen my original video on the Z-Bolt Blazer, it's really going to inform a lot of the things that I talk about in this video. I don't want to rehash a lot of the topics that I talk about, or especially the tests that I perform with the Z-Bolt Blazer. So I would highly recommend watching that first video that I'll have a link to in the description before watching this one, because again, it's going to lay out a lot of my ideas and philosophy behind the use of this light. However, the reason that we're making an update is because, again, they have a new version. And as you can probably tell, this is now set up in a handheld configuration. It's got one of the Theorem low-profile belt clips, and basically, this is now compatible with Surefire style bodies. So with the light bodies that you can use with mod light and other flashlight bodies, I can now use this head with any of those compatible Surefire or like mod light bodies. So now you can literally carry around a lightsaber in your pocket, and I think that is pretty cool. So if you guys, for whatever reason, had completely ignored my advice and have not seen that original video that I did, basically the Z-Bolt Blazer is a light, but unlike your typical LEDs, like again, Surefire, Mod Light, Cloud, a lot of those other big companies, this is an LEP, which, if I'm not mistaken, stands for Laser Excited Phosphor. So basically it's a laser being reflected off of phosphor, which creates an extremely powerful beam of light. Now, there are even restricted. So I always get non-restricted and restricted mixed up, but there are like government-only versions of this that are apparently even more powerful. This is obviously the civilian legal version of it. But with a light like this, you can definitely illuminate, and I've personally tested it out to about 1,000 yards, and get positive ID out to about 600 yards, depending on what style of optic you're running. Again, you can refer to my previous video where I test that out. So with this one, though, now we are adding some more universal compatibility, because the last one, it was all proprietary parts, proprietary mounts. You could use arms mounts and stuff like that that were modified to work with the Z-Bolt Blazer before. But now, if I wanted to, I can take my 13.9 gun here, which is rocking a Surefire dual fuel light. I can unthread the head from this one. I can then thread the head from my Z-Bolt Blazer onto this one, and then with running an 18650, be able to now get positive ID on targets much further away. And again, we'll still work with those styles of bodies. You can't really see it because it's so focused, but maybe you can see the light being reflected down. And so one of the things that I really wanted to test is how this thing would actually perform shooting at longer ranges. So I showed how this thing does in the previous video, shooting at a 200-yard firing line, or shining it at a 200-yard firing line. But this time I actually wanted to shoot at the 200-yard firing line. And so I put the Z-Bolt Blazer in the short body configuration on my little DMR build and took some shots at 200 yards. Now, one of the things with the LEP, one of the big criticisms that I have and other people have, is how focused it is. It is literally just a spotlight. I have been using one of the diffusers. I believe this is it's like a 15 or 20 degree diffuser, which gives you a little bit more spill. But I wanted to see how that would affect things shooting at 200. And I think the footage is going to speak for itself. Now, I actually did it twice because I forgot to turn on the microphone my first couple rounds. But one of the other cool things was when I showed up to the range that night after the sun had gone down, there was actually someone else testing out their new Mod Light OKW, trying to do the exact same thing, i.e. taking shots at 200 yards using their light to illuminate it. And again, if you've seen the original video I did, the difference at 200 yards between the Mod Light OKW and this light are very readily apparent. He was having a hard time finding the steel gong that they have at the range at 200 yards. Meanwhile, there was no mistake what I was pointing my gun at when I had the Z-Bolt Blazer turned on, and honestly, it made engaging target at 200 yards just boringly easy and consistent. Now, obviously, if you're shooting out further and further, a lot of that's going to come down to you as the shooter and what type of environment you're in. But man, it could not have been more easy to engage at 200 yards. Meanwhile, when the other person at the range was using his Mod Light OKW, it was still a little bit tough to be able to get the proper contrast to see where each individual target was at that range. And again, I think now having the utility of being able to carry this as a handheld light adds even more utility to it. And again, in case you didn't watch that original video, there are some drawbacks, obviously, with not having that spill, but one of the best features of this light is its ability to overcome photonic barriers, i.e., if someone is shining a light at me and I need to be able to see what is going on behind that light, I need a more powerful light to be able to overcome that. In the first video I did, I tested having my wife, then fiance, now wife, sitting in a car shining the headlights at me, trying to overcome that with a couple different lights, and how successful I was at that, and then especially having the brights on the car directly illuminated into my eyes and being able to overcome that. There are times when I need a more powerful, like higher candela light to be able to overcome those photonic barriers, and now that's something I can just have on me all the time if I wanted to. Again, if you wanted to get the Theorem kind of ring mount, you can do that. For me, I just prefer the more low profile pocket clip that comes on this one. But this really, really, really increases the utility, I think, of your pocket lights. Now, again, this isn't going to be able to do everything. If you're trying to flood a large area to be able to find something or spot something, this is going to be a little bit more difficult to do that with than, say, that Surefire dual fuel, Mod Light OKW, the PLHV2, or any of the cloud defensive lights. But if identifying positively things at longer range is important to you, or again, especially overcoming those photonic barriers, these I think are worth their weight in gold. And again, I believe I mentioned this in the first video, but something important to mention too is this is basically a step in the escalation of force. If someone is several hundred yards away doing something that I don't want them to, whether that be on my property, on a site that I'm doing security for, or whatever situation you can imagine, being able to illuminate them from several hundred yards away lets them know, I see what you're doing, I'm very aware of what you're doing, and I can basically see you now. You might want to reconsider what it is you're doing. That is a powerful thing to be able to do without actually having to resort to any lethal or non-lethal uses of force. Again, there's the number of ways you can incorporate one of these into your security, into your firearm systems, is limited really only by your imagination. Now, if you were interested in picking one of these up, it's going to run you about the same price as those Mod Lights or those Surefires. So really just comes down to what your foreseen use case is. If you wanted to have it in a handheld version like this, you can do that too, but you have the versatility of being able to swap back and forth. And something that they recently introduced that I think is particularly intriguing is the fact that they now have basically a quick detach system for diffusers like this one, or if I wanted to have other colors. So say I'm doing homestead defense against coyotes or other predators, they have red light filters and green light filters for that. They now have a system by which you can have that tucked off to the side and be using the light just as a standalone incredibly powerful spotlight, or I can now push that in line with the beam and get either that diffusion, like with a threaded piece like this, or with one of those colored diffusers as well. That makes it a lot faster and easier to be able to switch from one configuration to another, or go from spotlighting something at 600 yards away to being able to more adequately cover a larger area with the use of a diffuser. And as I'm pretty sure they actually have even wider diffusers now available, where I'm going to be reducing that throw, but now increasing what I'm actually illuminating close to me. So again, if any of that stuff sounds interesting, there's like I said, a lot of use cases for something like this. Definitely check out what they have to offer. The nice thing about ZBolt is I can link directly to their website and not have to worry about YouTube taking the video down, because they've been doing that a lot to my channel recently. In fact, this video was supposed to be posted a while ago, but I just learned that I won't be able to upload for a week, so here we are. But thanks to people over on Patreon, I can still create content regardless of what YouTube does or doesn't want me to do. So because of that, I post all my content over there early. If you want to financially support the channel or check out some of the benefits that people over on Patreon get, definitely follow the links down below to that. But as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.